Hi everyone, here are my thoughts on self-regulation, how I'm doing, and how I could do better. In thinking about the self-regulatory skills discussed by Angela Duckworth and also in our reading this week in James, he uses the words negation and repression and also substitution. And I think in terms of that, I tend to do more substitution than negation. Me thinking about what I am not going to do is typically not very productive for me. But in terms of the terminology that Angela Duckworth used, I do use a lot of situation selection, trying to pick choices and be places by default. The good choices are available. And I also use situation modification. We hide our cookies up in a cabinet where we can't see them. As far as skills that I'd like to improve, I would really like to try the skill that they discussed in the video of cognitive reappraisal, where you look at yourself as a third person and you try to evaluate what you're doing and think about whether or not you objectively think that's a good choice. And how would I do on the marshmallow test? I've really tried to think about it, and I'm not sure that I have the right answer because I can't remember my 4-year-old self very well. But I do know that I was eager to please adults, so maybe that would have resulted in an inhibition that would have prevented me from eating the marshmallow if I perceived that the adults really didn't want me to eat it. If I felt like it was just a choice that was arbitrary, that I could wait and get two or just have the one, then I may have been more like the students who ended up playing with the marshmallow and then eating it. So I don't have ultimate confidence that I would have waited to eat 2 marshmallows. But I'm not also sure that I wouldn't have waited. So maybe I just don't know myself enough well to say. But if I had to go one way or the other, I would just go ahead and say, well, I probably would have eaten the marshmallow, depending on how long they left us there in the room. And how about my executive control process? Well, I would say that I'm fairly content with the choices I make. I don't feel like I'm spiraling out of control or anything. But time management is something I've thought a lot about as I read what we had to read this week, in part because I feel like I'm doing the best job I can. But the question seems to be there, particularly in the chapter on will, about maybe doing even better, to be more intentional about the choices I make. So sometimes I feel like I'm very reactive in my schedule, and I'd like to be more proactive. Every year that I think about things that I'd like to do, and there are things that I always leave undone. And just the precious nature of time is really making me look at this and think about how maybe I could rethink that and be more intentional about the moments, the tiny habits. And in translating that to James, I'm thinking it's like the will comes first, maybe. Maybe I could use the will to change the habits and then to expand the associations of what I can do and what's possible. And that's all.